what was your relationship with money and how has it changed today?
I wasn't really interested in the stock market when I was young. The minute you start making money, it empowers you, it allows you to live life on your terms.
When we were growing up, we always taught that money doesn't bring you happiness.
As Warren Buffett has again taught us, and he's taught me so many things in life that, it's not that money fundamentally changes you. He still lives in the same house, drives the same car, the same circle of friends, lives in a God-forsaken place in the Nebraska, Omaha, if you will. Choices that he gives. He wants to support, education. He wants to support abortion. He wants to support healthcare. He wants to support women's rights. He can now do that thanks to the fat wallet he carries. I know the first important lessons of bull markets that I was driving by looking at the rear view mirror rather than the front view mirror. Every bull market needs to look ahead, look at different things happening in the world. I think there are two dates in economic history that people should remember. One was, of course, November 1989 when the Berlin Wall fell, which happened on November 5th, 2024, when Donald Trump became president. He has changed the world. He will probably change the world in ways we cannot understand that now. When the Berlin Wall fell, I tried very hard to understand how I could profit from it, and I was too young to understand what happened. But what it was a triumph of capitalism or communism. The Dow at that time was 2,500. It's today 45,000. Sensex was below 1,000, if you can believe that, and today it's close to 80,000, right? So it was the triumph of capitalism. So I'm a bit skeptical about the new world order for the next 10, 20 years. So even today when I pick a stock, I'm gnawed by self-doubt. Whether it'll work, won't work. Even after 40 years, it's shameful, but I still am gnawed by self-doubt when I pick a stock. So I think
that self-doubt actually never goes away.
I think the great ones don't have it. The great ones are supremely confident in their abilities to, when they're doing it, they manage to put, as they call it, the bank on the table, when they're doing it. It's really, truly great ones. They don't suffer self-doubt, and they're truly good listeners.
Hey guys, welcome to Money Mindset. Today on our show, we have none other than Ramesh Damani. He needs no introduction. Ramesh, thank you so much for joining us.
Sonia, it's such an honor to be on your show, and I've always admired your work ethic and professionalism so many years on television medium. So thank you for inviting me.
And thank you for supporting me. This is a brand new journey for me.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
With people like you, by my side, I know I'm going to sort of hit the target that I want to.
I'm sure you're going to do that. You're in the most exciting medium right now on the broadcast space, which is podcasting. And I'm given your background and efficiency, I'm sure you'll do a great job here too.
So, our show is called The Money Mindset. Yeah. And I've always known you as Ramesh Damani, the ace investor. But today I want to talk about Ramesh Damani, the wealth creator for yourself, right? What does money mean to you? And for an average young investor who's starting out now, what should money mean to him or her?
Sonia, great question to start off. Money, of course, gives you the freedom to express life as you want to do it. I think it's very important to understand that. I think for the younger set, there will be some people who want to be artists or intellectuals, and money doesn't mean an important part in their life. But most people who are in the middle class and want to become millionaires, they have to focus on money. It's what they struggle for throughout their lives. I think sometimes if they learn how to invest, they can make a much more sense out of the world, sense out of their pocketbooks. And I hope through this podcast and through other mediums, they understand the benefits of long-term investing.
So what does money mean to you, Ramesh? When you started off your journey, what was your relationship with money and how has it changed today?
As I think George Bernard Shaw said, that everyone starts out as a communist and then he doesn't remain a communist. And I was also a communist, liberal, socialist in my youth. And here's one scoop about me. I wasn't really interested in the stock market when I was young. It was my father's persuasion, cajoling, moral suasion that ultimately forced me to make a career in the stock market. So the first 10 years of my career, professional career, I was in America as a programmer. I was one of the earlier coders out of India doing coding work in America.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that was my early life, almost 10 years, a decade of that. And then 89, the winds of change were taking place in India, and my father told me, you've had your fun, now come back to India. So I moved back to India, which was very rare at that time to move back from Hollywood, where I was, and Silicon Valley, which was like a stone's throw away, back to the last street, which is almost a backwater. But that's been my journey so far.
Wow. So from socialist Ramesh to capitalist Ramesh, how has the journey been?
It's been an extraordinary journey. I think as I realized that the minute you start making money, it empowers you, it allows you to live life on your terms. But also, like a lot of people ahead of me, I realized that there's also a lot of fun giving back. By teaching a new generation investors what has to be done, and also using the wealth you accumulate for more good societal purposes. We had so many great examples from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, from Warren Buffett, from Charlie Munger, and so many people in India now are doing philanthropy back with their work. But money is the lubricant that allows you to do that. So I'm very my wrong-headed notions of money have now been disbanded. And I believe that, as someone said, it's glorious to earn money, but you should earn money, but you should always remember that you're trustees for that wealth.
You're trustees for that wealth, okay. Because when we're growing up, we're always taught that money doesn't bring you happiness. Don't give so much importance to money, focus on your work instead. But what is your answer to that? Does money really bring you happiness?
I'm sure it alleviates a lot of problems.
It solves all your money problems for sure.
See, money allows you to express yourself. Like, say I want to take a year off and take care of my parents when they're old. If I don't have the money, I can't do that. Or I want to take a few years off and travel the world because that's what I enjoy. Or go and watch, art series in London. I can do that because money allows me to do that. Without money, you don't have a choice. So money gives you that full experience of life, as I said, and the ability to make choices which you could not have made. I see a lot of people struggling to the 60s, 70s, living on tight budgets, living on, worried about their retirement, worried about their kids' education, worried about so many other things. And if you have enough money, it can alleviate a lot of stress in your life. So it may not bring happiness, but it alleviates a lot of stress.
But I do see a lot of wealthy people also worry a lot about their money. Why is that?
I think it's in the nature of human beings to perhaps worry, to be worried. And there's what is enough. It's not that, as Alexander said, you don't want just this plot of land, you just covet your neighbor's plot of land, So there's never enough, Sonia, and it's just the nature of the beast. I think if you bring it down to the fact that, as Warren Buffett has again taught us, and he's taught me so many things in life, that, it's not that money fundamentally changes you. He still lives in the same house, drives the same car, the same circle of friends, lives in a God-forsaken place in the Nebraska, Omaha, if you will. But, choices that he gives. He wants to support, education. He wants to support abortion. He wants to support healthcare. He wants to support women's rights. He can now do that thanks to the fat wallet he carries.
So money gives you that freedom to make those choices that perhaps you can't make if you don't have the resources.
You don't. Most people struggle working on a job, and pinching pennies everywhere. And they would like to take the kids on a nice vacation, but they can't. They'd like to retire. They'd like to travel. They can't do that because their family budget perhaps doesn't allow them.
Were you born into money? I mean, you told me about how your father persuaded you to get, a bit more capitalistic. But how were your early years?
No, I was born into a very middle-class family in India where money was tight and budgets were very restricted and very little disposable income, so to speak. But that was the true of my generation that grew up. In many sense, we were part of the lucky generation of, people born at midnight, around midnight, 55, 57, 60 were born out there, that we prospered along with the country. I think by the time I was 80, India started growing, GDP started growing at 1% higher in each decade that followed. And that prosperity and that growth translated to all of us who were there to take advantage of it. So I was brought in socialist India, scarcity India, India where your dreams had to be limited. To give you an example, when I went to America to study, Sonia, in 1977, I'm dating myself, but 77, the government of India actually gave you $6 to go abroad. That's what they gave you. If you left the shores of India, you got $6. $6, I mean, you could barely buy a couple of postcards with that, But that's the status of India in 1977. So you come an extraordinary journey in the next 50 years, and I'm very grateful that I've been a part of it.
So when you in what year did you start investing, your investment journey?
Well, there are two parts to this story. The first part is that my father always wanted me to learn investment. I was more interested in programming or more interested in reading, more of an intellectual abstract mode than an actual money-minded code. I didn't have many needs, didn't have many expenses. I was fine living the way I was. So he made a wager to me that I'll send you some money and you invest that in the stock market. And whatever you make is yours to keep. And if you lose, no questions asked. And that seemed like a fair bet to me, right?
Wow.
So father sending you money, I said, yeah, please send it fast.
Why not?
Yeah, send it fast you can. And the sad truth of the matter is that within the few years of he sending me that money, I had lost it all in the stock market. And that, of course, that bruised my ego tremendously. How could I lose such money? There's a bull market underway in America. I know the first important lessons of bull markets that I was driving by looking at the rear view mirror rather than the front view mirror. I was looking at stocks that had worked in the last 20 years, the inflation-adjusted gold, oil stocks, which weren't working in the new world that was coming post-Berlin Wall fall. And that was a lesson I never forgot, that every bull market needs to look ahead, look at different things happening in the world. So that was one part of it. Then I came back to India and started my brokerage business. I became a member of the BSE, as you know.
How old were you at that time?
I was maybe, somewhere around 30, 32,
Okay.
something like that. And for the first few years, did the brokerage business, which is a good business at the time. You'd get 1.5% brokerage deals. There were very few brokers. You made a tidy sum in brokers. But I saw a lot of my friends were investors, and rather than making the 1%, they were making the 100% and 200% because stocks were doubling and then doubling again out there. And very soon I realized I wanted to belong to that crowd and not to the brokerage crowd. So I think the first investment I made, and we'll come back to the connections, how life works so serendipitously over time, was I bought some technology companies in India in 1993. That was my beginning mark as an investor. And again, I bought the technology company, Sonia, as you'll remember, because I worked in technology for 10 years.
Correct.
So I kind of understood that before a lot of other people in the last street did.
So you bought businesses that you understood. That's, I guess, the first maxim to understand about the stock market.
It's what Warren Buffett has taught us, that invest in your circle of competency, invest in what you know and know your circle of competency, know the outer limits of that. So by investing in that, maybe directly, maybe indirectly, I'm not sure what I did, I was following that maxim. So I invested in the technology businesses that I understood, because I realized what value proposition, not realizing they would lead the bull market or they'd make me 100 times the money. It's just something I understood. So that's where I started.
And you were an early investor in Infosys. You rode that whole phase, right, of IT stocks. But today the world is so different. I mean, we've seen what's happened to IT stocks in the last couple of years. How do you, as an investor, as a value investor or a growth investor for that matter, how do you approach all of this disruption?
Let me start with a more philosophical proverb. Rudyard Kipling once said that, what does he know of England who only England knows, right? So we are all products of 1989 when the Berlin Wall fell. And at that time, no one, of course, told me that the technology sector would be the best performing sector in India over the next 30 years or so. You'd make 1,000 times your money in Infosys or Wipro or HCL or whatever out there. But that was the truth. I think there are two dates in economic history that people should remember. One was, of course, November 1989 when the Berlin Wall fell and the world as we knew it for the next 30 years came into being. An open world, the US pulling the world along, immigration, trade, WTO, NATO, World Bank, all these institutions that propelled the entire world into a more prosperous place happened after 1989 and the Berlin Wall falling. I feel, Sonia, that you're talking about long term. I'm talking about a more long-term shift in the axis of the world, which happened on November 5th, 2024, when Donald Trump became president. He has changed the world. He will probably change the world in ways we cannot understand that now. So I think rather than the US turning left or right, which has happened many times and the world has come back to the center, it is the US is itself now making a U-turn. And that will have profound investment implications, not over the next few weeks, but over the next few years during his presidency. I think already staff appointments, whether it's for Attorney General, whether it's for national security, is throwing a thumb at the world that we knew it. So I think the world is going to profoundly change January 20th when he's sworn in as the 47th President of America. I think investing will also change. What was true for the last 30 years, when the Berlin Wall fell, I tried very hard to understand how I could profit from it, and I was too young to understand what happened. But what it was a triumph of capitalism or communism. The Dow at that time was 2,500. It's today 45,000. Sensex was below 1,000, if you can believe that, and today it's close to 80,000, right? So it was the triumph of capitalism. And now the very people who changed our world, the Americans, okay, by this policy of retribution, revenge that they might bring in, are not going to make America great again, but they're going to make America look more like China and Russia, perhaps, So I'm a bit skeptical about the new world order for the next 10, 20 years. So investment, of course, will have to change. I don't think you can. Maybe you should look at more inwardly focusing companies. Maybe you should look at more defense companies. I'm not sure, but I'm very sure the world will change. It will not be the world that we saw for, at least my generation saw for 35 years.
So when you talk about a changing world, right, when you talk about the old order being perhaps dismantled and new things coming into place, I mean, who would have thought Bitcoin would have done so well, right? Now we have a Trump administration that is very pro-cryptocurrencies. So for an average investor, how does he approach this new order?
See, Trump is very transactional. You should remember that. He was against Bitcoin till Elon Musk endorsed him. Now he's pro-Bitcoin. And it worries me that Bitcoin has become so respectable. I think it's being packaged by investment bankers and generating fees, so it has become respectable. But it remains at the end of the day, to use another proverb, the emperor without clothes. No one is calling that. But it has no intrinsic value. It's a speculative position. Merchant bankers make money. It scares me that people are investing, the younger generation investing in Bitcoins, right? Warren Buffett gave this great example, which is good for your younger audience to remember. He says, gold has had a good run in the last few years, but he said, I never invested in gold. Because he said, what are you going to do with gold? You're going to keep it in a room, maybe you'll tickle it sometime, but it won't tickle you back. So it has no use for gold out there. But when you buy companies, you're buying living organisms, a living organization out there. Over time, they will grow. Over time, they'll give you dividend yield. Over time, they'll give you profits, bonuses, stocks, whatever. And he points to numerous instances where long-term investors are made out like bandits by investing in great businesses. So I believe that investing in great businesses will still continue. What those great businesses may be, I think may change over a period of time. I think you are perhaps on the edge of it because as I look at the world, I think digital businesses will tend to do very well. I think people understand the power of social media, understand the power of digital infrastructure. So I think as one example, probably would look at digital businesses.
Okay, I want to come to that in a bit, but before that, I want to once again go back to 1992 when you had that whole investment phase in IT. And of course, you knew a lot about IT at the time, but how did you make your first crore? I'm asking because, today, there's so much FOMO about investing, right? Everyone wants to benefit from the power of compounding. But for someone like you who started at a time when there was no knowledge, there was no information overload, how did you make your first 1 crore?
I started investing seriously in 93 and the first stock I bought was Infosys. And that was just the first years of a bull market in technology, if you will. And then by happenstance, I'm sitting at my Bolt terminal in BSC. And it keeps flashing there, Bolt designed by CMC, Bolt designed by CMC. And the government, in its infinite, thank God for their wisdom, decided to disinvest CMC. And a friend of mine got me the balance sheet, and I remember looking at the company and not understanding it, rubbing my eyes. I checked with my father. That company was available for 30 crore rupees at that time, and it had done the entire Bolt trading system, and it had done the entire Indian railway ticketing system. Anytime you go on railway, you produce ticket. It was done by a company called CMC. It is a forerunner of IBM. When IBM had left India in the 70s, CMC had taken over the contracts, and they developed software skills along with it. Now, 30 crores, to give you a perspective, Sonia, even in 93, 94, you could probably give the same contract to IBM and they'll charge you $100 million or $200 million to do it. And he was getting this entire business for $30 million. So to come back to your point, those are the first 2 stocks I bought. I think within 3, 4, 5 years, these stocks had gone up manyfold, and both had been worth more than 1 crore in my portfolio. Wow. So that's when I first realized that I could find my way in investing, and that it is a way to, a more modest, a more better living than I was used to.
So, of course, there's a lot of research that goes into buying stocks, but what are the softer skills that you need? How do you stay convinced even in a downturn? For example, now the market is down 10% from the top, right? There are so many of stocks in my portfolio, great names, great promoters, super businesses, but they're down about 20-30% from the top. How do I stay convinced to ride this journey?
I think you need to distinguish between a couple of things. One is risk and volatility, and one understanding the nature of markets. So risk and volatility, to explain to you briefly, risk is what is happening right now. It's gone down 10-20%. There's nothing you can do about it. It's the nature of the beast. That is the volatility that goes with it. It will go down. Stocks go up and down. That's what creates the momentum in the stock market. So that volatility you just have to deal with out there. Risk is the chance of you permanently losing capital. And nobody's rich enough to afford that. We can't, anything multiplied by 0 will result in 0. So we can't afford that kind of risk in the market. But we are in a good place, in a good time, in a good country, that I think that if you can ride through the volatility, the risk of having a 0 on a good investment is very, very minimal, right? So my suggestion to you is just ride out that volatility. The second point is that you need to understand market cycles. Market goes through bull markets and bear markets out there. And both are inherent in capitalism. A bull market will always end. There's no such thing as a permanent bull market. And a bear market also will correspondingly end at some time. So do I feel we're still in a bull market? Yes, I think we're in a bull market. So then prices will ultimately head higher over a period of time.
Okay. So you said your first 1 crore or first couple of crores was through Infosys and CMC that you bought way back in 1993. Then what happened? How did you sort of delve deeper into the stock markets? Where did you make your mistakes? How did you learn from it?
Well, the first thing I was so scared. I mean, the kind of money we made, it seemed like a fortune to me at that time. At that time, it seemed like a fortune to me. So I was very scared to reinvest it. And a lot of well-meaning people advised me that get out of the market, enjoy your life, put your money in FD. Of course, that was all pretty stupid advice in retrospect, because that was just a fraction of the money we currently are worth because of kept on investing in the market. But I think for a period of almost, I would say 6 months, 1 year after that, the peaks of Infosys and CMC, which took place in the 2000 TMT bubble, I didn't want to invest. I just want to keep the cash because I was too scared that if I invest in another company, I would lose the money.
So you had booked out of Infosys?
At some point, yes, I sold out Infosys, CMC because I saw the bull market ending and I want to take some money off the table and the valuations were very frothy. So you got out of those businesses. And you put it in cash, waiting for a time to invest, finding good stock, and not having the courage to invest. Luckily for me, there was a bear market going on, so values kept going down. Till ultimately, they came to a point where there were irresistible bargains. And here's another lesson that you need to learn. Warren Buffett has taught us that someone's sitting in shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. And the tree is planted in bear markets. That's where you can really make money in the market. When you get bargains out there, people are losing their head, people are losing their money, they want to get out of stocks, they want to see the broker statement. And that's the time to get into the market. That's when you get truly getting bargains in the market. So you want to sow your seeds in a bear market. So whenever that bear market in 1994, I had some cash, I was ready to invest, and finally I bet back on the front foot. And having gone through that cycle once or twice, then you feel confident that you can understand what valuations are.
So you've seen so many bear markets, right? The market is now down, 10% from the top. It's barely a correction. Are we headed into a bear market, you think?
I've often asked myself this question. It's a very important question to ask, Sonia. There was some evidence to suggest, for example, when the election results came out, that the market had peaked out. And I also panicked in those days, but the market kind of rebounded quickly after that. There is some evidence that we topped out in September 30th, when the market was there. But after having watched the market, I would like to restate that I think we're in a correction, as you say. And the reason I say that, because when I look at the mix of stocks, a lot of stocks are making new highs again. A lot of stocks are maybe just going through a period of consolidation. Typically, if you're starting a ferocious bear market, it would be more global in nature, A. And B, it would mean that stocks won't make new highs. Almost 10-20% of the stocks in the portfolio made new highs over the last few weeks. So that leads me to suggest that you're in a long-term correction. The first correction in 5 years. Others, we haven't fallen more than 10%.
We haven't.
I seriously doubt that we've topped out.
So since COVID, I think we haven't had any major correction.
Exactly my point. I said you had it. So you're overdue for a correction. It happened for correction. That's fine. And as I said, you have to learn to live with that volatility. I think everyone would like to get out of the top and buy at the bottom. It doesn't happen. It's not like a game of, pack of cards. You have a bad round, goes down, you throw away the cards. You have to stick to those businesses. You have to, as they say in Australia, you have to dance with the girl you brung to the dance.
Okay, continue to dance till the party ends with the same girl. Okay, but going back to young Ramesh, right? So where were we? We bought Infosys, we bought CMC, then we sold it, but we were holding on to the cash out of fear that we would lose it all. Yeah, out of fear that we would lose it all. And then what happened?
So, ultimately, you find bargains again in the market. I mean, I think I had good teachers and I learned ultimately how to spot value in the market. The one thing I've realized, Sonia, and that might again help you viewers, is that you try and realize whether you're in a bull market or bear market. In a bull market, by definition, stocks will go up. So even if you buy some poor quality stocks, they will tend to do well. In a bear market, by definition, you lose money. So you need to figure it out, whether you're in a bull market or bear market. Once you can figure that out, what you need to figure out is what is the leadership in a bull market. Because the maximum money is made if you get into the leadership of the bull market. For example, in 92, where you made the maximum money was in cement stocks because they were the leadership in the bull market. 2000, the technology bull run that you and I talked about recently, led by Infosys, Wipro, HCL, those are the stocks went up 50, 100 bags. Some people have suggested that leadership in this bull market was public sector stocks, defense and rails, if you will. So my point being is that if you can identify a bull market and you can identify leadership in a bull market, That's where you're going to make a lot of money. So I've been somewhat blessed in that sense that I have a good circle of friends. I read widely. I think about these things. So we'll be able to capture not only the turning points in markets, but also where the leadership resides in the market.
So where do you see the leadership in the next, say, 5-10 years?
Put me to the test.
$1 million question. So I caught you on the spot there, asking you about the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah, but go ahead.
But the world has changed, Sonia, as I said, and I'm not sure we can look at the world with the same glasses. I think it will change. Will the stock market survive? Yes, as long as there's a capitalistic system in the world, the stock market will survive. It cannot. The boom and bust cycle cannot be segregated. It's like segregating, church from religion. It's just not going to happen. So that will remain. We just have to be smart enough and keep our eyes and ears open up. Just enough. In the 90s, we thought technology would do well in India when people thought manufacturing and people and those kind of business will do well. There were heretics who believed that technology will do well. There'll be a different kind of world that we'll live in. I have no doubt about that. And I think we're just beginning to see the changes that are taking place in Trump 2.0. And I think there will be winners, but I'm at a loss right now to tell you where the winners are.
I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I remember watching you way back when I started my career. I think you were doing an interview with Udin at that time, and you had spoken about this one company, TCI Express, and you just mentioned it in passing. I think, these are companies which are doing very well in the logistics space. And at that time, I was, I think, about 27, 28 years old. And then
You don't look any more older than that.
I bought that stock at that time. And of course, we were allowed to buy and hold for the long term. And it's been one of the biggest multi-baggers in my portfolio. So
that's a nice story. I'm glad you have a good example.
If there's any validation to your stock picking abilities, I mean.
Thank you. That's really kind of you. Thank you.
Picking great companies. And of course, like the Infosys of the world are well documented, well researched, right? But these are companies where you sort of identify and then you stay convinced. Now, my conviction was only because of coattail investing. It was your conviction that was my conviction. But so how do you identify such companies? And, over the next, say, couple of years, where do you see these gems that can perhaps become multi-baggers in your portfolio?
Well, the one broad theme that I feel, which of course you're expressing it in different ways in terms of podcasts, is this whole digitization theme that's going on in India. I think India has leapfrogged the bad infrastructure generation into a digital generation. Yeah. So everything is digital. Whether you go for example, an airport, you use Digi Yatra, which is again a digital system of recognition. Your PAN issuance card, your eKYC, your ONDC payments, your Google Pays, all these are expressions of digital pay. So in order for India to become more digital, we need digital infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So companies that bet on digital infrastructure seem like a good way to play for the next 5, 10, 20 years. Mm-hmm. And also India's digital stack, as we call it, is now the envy of the world. So I think before long, our neighbors, the region, the next continent is going to come knocking at our doors to give them the same digital stack. Mm-hmm. So I think that is one place that I would say that irrespective of who comes into power, will continue to do well over the next 5, 10 years because we are riding on a very powerful trend. I mean, it was digitization that made NSE the premier institution in India, for example. It knocked the BSE out, which had 90% market share at that time. Digitizing telephone, you know what happened. We went from a country of analog phones to, digital phones, and everyone suddenly had a phone out there. Broadcasting, suddenly because of social media and digitization, everyone is influencer in the market out there. So it's a huge, huge mega trend that will unfold in the next 5, 10 years. So there are many ways to skin the cat, but if you can find a way that of companies that bet on basic digital infrastructure, monetize, say, an ONDC block, trade that goes on, or monetize, transaction-based volume over a period of time, I think that's a great place to put money in.
Okay, so digitization is the big theme. But coming back to your own journey, right? As a young investor, what are the investing mistakes that you made that you'd want other young investors to learn from? And if you can give us some examples.
I don't think you have enough time to go through that. I made a lot of them in my life.
The big ones.
But I tell you the one thing that young investors should learn. I get a stock wrong. I've got many stocks wrong out there. So I've lost 30%, 40% on a stock gone wrong. But as I told you, I bought Infosys, which went up 500x. I bought CMC, which went up 200x. I bought so many stocks that have been multi-baggers. So if you make 200x your money and you lose 30, 40% in a stock, you're fine. It's not going to, derail your investment objectives over a period of time. So the thing that I always tell people is compounding, compounding, compounding. The secret of wealth is out. There's no secret. It is compounding out there. Let me explain compounding as Warren Buffett explained it. He says, if you're standing on top of a hill with a small, on a snowy hill with a snowball, it has to roll downhill. So it'll become bigger and bigger over time. So you need two things. You either need a very long hill or you need to be very, very young to start at that time, because compounding takes time. The first 5-10 years, nothing shows up. But after 10 years, it becomes almost magical. So in my experience, if you have a 30-year professional life and you can double your money every 3 years, say, you're going to get 10 doubles in your life. Now, 10 doubles doesn't seem like a heck of a lot, but any amount you start with doubles 10 times, okay, means 1,000x difference to return. Okay, so 1 crore becomes 1,000 crores, basically. Do the math. It's actually extraordinary. I just wish people would understand that a bit more. I think their whole lives would change because of that. If there's one thing I want to impress upon the young people is that there is actually no magic like compounding in the market. And all of us who become rich over a period of time, you can talk to a variety of people, as I'm sure you will in your show. I think they'll all ultimately thank the god of compounding.
Yeah, that's true. I definitely thank the god of compounding because I started investing when I was about 20, 22 years old. I actually happened to meet someone, from a brokerage at that time who was a guest on our show, and I knew nothing about investing. And he told me, you know what, just 20% of your salary, just put it into this fund. I think he was working for that fund. And I thank him to this day. I don't know where he is right now, but I thank him to this day because it's just, you're making money while you're sleeping. So that gives you the freedom to, take decisions maybe 15, 20 years down the line.
To express yourself. And it works over 20, 30 years. It doesn't work over 2-5 years because you can't tell the difference. But even if you do 1 or 2 percentage points better, over a 30-year period, it's almost like piloting a plane to land in Delhi and reaching Moscow. It's that big a difference.
It is, absolutely. But do you think for people who are starting their journey now, does it make sense to just, go through the passive investing route, invest in an index fund? Because stock picking has become tougher now.
I mean, it is always tough. It is never easy. But yes, if you don't have the bandwidth to pick stocks or the intellectual ability to pick stocks, definitely go with a passive fund, invest in an index, and you'll get an index return. But if ambition is to become rich, ambition is to be financially free, you probably need to spend more time picking stocks, because don't let anyone tell you that it's the same thing. If you find a guy who's a good stock picker and gives you that few extra points to return, that's worth your weight in gold. Be nice to him, take him out for dinner, do whatever you want, but that guy's advice is worth his weight in gold. I mean, that the ability to pick stocks, I mean, the difference between picking, say, a Microsoft or picking a Google or picking an Infosys and picking an ordinary run-of-the-mill stock that will go up and down and probably lose capital is extraordinary. So I don't want to misuse or disabuse the notion of picking stocks. Obviously, you need to pick stocks. But if you can't do it, or you don't have a circle of friends to do it, or you don't have confidence to do it, then the next best thing is to invest in an index.
You've had this amazing circle of mentors, right? You've spoken to me about it over the years, how whether it was R.K. Damani, whether it was Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. I think you've been to Omaha several times as well, right?
Yeah.
What has the biggest learning been? Who's been the most influential to you in your life? And what were the big teachings from that circle of influence?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question. A lot of people compliment me that I'm looking ahead, but I'm looking ahead because I'm standing on their shoulders, I'm standing on shoulders. There's no doubt in my mind, my intellectual godfather was Warren Buffett, Munger, Peter Lynch, because I think the lessons that I imbibed from them by reading their books, reading the AGM notes, or going to Omaha, as you said, still resist with me. Compounding, building a circle of competency, long-term investing, volatility was risk. They still, every day I live and breathe them, and I teach them to my children also. So there's there. But what is extraordinary, Sonia, as you mentioned, that I came to India in the late 80s. And within the first few months of me being here, I met R.K. Damani, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, Durgesh Bhai, Nimesh Shah, all the investors who are, when the chapter will be written on the Indian equities from 1989 to the present day, they'd all have a full chapter devoted to them because they've been such good value investors over time. And here's a point that I think a lot of people don't understand. There's an old saying that birds of a feather flock together. Now, if you go back and study the Indian markets, there will be people who participate in the so-called Harshad Mehta bull run. What are they? They all discredited. Some ended up in jail. Some ended up dead, already not there. There was the Ketan Parekh bull run in 2000. Again, these people thought they were bigger than the market. They could influence the market. Their buying moved the market up. Again, they're disregarded, disreputed, out of the market. But a group of investors, as you mentioned and as I mentioned, who believe that the markets are supreme, that great businesses will prosper over time, and that the market is important, we are not important. We are just messengers in that market out there. And they have prospered over 30 years and prospered to an unbelievable degree because they believed in the power of market. They didn't believe that their buying was moving up the stock price or they were more important. They believed that buying good business was important. I think that is the common thread that ties us all together in this great endeavor that we have. And it's so important that you find good friends, find good mentors, stick around with a lot of people. A lot of people will tell you a lot of easy ways to make money in the market, and they probably are, but it's not lasting money. If you want to transform your family from a generation of money to a generation of wealth, you need to stick to long-term investing. The secret's out. There's no secret. That's what you need to do over 30 years, compound your money over time. So a lot of shortcuts will come along the way, and people will make money. You can save taxes, do this, do that. But the long-term wealth has been created by people you know. They all belong to that same philosophy, that intellectual village we call Graham, Buffettsville, Doddsville. We all belong to that village.
And all of these people that you speak about, right? R.K. Damani, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, what is that change in mindset? I mean, they all started from zero at some point, right?
Yeah, they
and
did,
reached
absolutely.
where they are today. So what is the change in mindset that you need to bring about in yourself if you want to be like them?
Well, the first important thing is that I learned not only about valuations from them, how to understand values of business, but also values about how you want to lead your life. So it's very important. You have mentors who teach you that entire spectrum of how to behave in life, how to size up markets, how to value a business. So they taught me all these things out there. The remarkable thing about this business that we are in and the philosophy that we have is that we've all had our paths to nirvana. We've all bought different stocks. It's not that we bought the same stocks and piled up on them, or one guy has bought the stocks and everyone's followed. We've all bought our own stocks. I think the commonality of our portfolio is less than 5%. But the process is the same. We all want to buy value. We all want to buy great businesses. We want to buy good managements. We want to buy things. And I learned those from watching them and seeing how they behave. When you had a bad quarter, you have to live with it. That's just the nature of business. When you have a good quarter, don't get too excited. There are more good quarters to come. Great businesses grow and compound over large periods of time. Take a look at ITC. It's been one of the greatest stocks in India. It's compounded over the last 40, 50 years. Even if at a modest rate, it has become a very well capitalized business over a period of time. So I've learned a lot just by looking and observing how they do. And I've been blessed. What can I say? I just came and I happened to meet all those guys in the market who ultimately will have chapters written on them in the Great Indian Story.
You think a large part of your wealth creation is because of luck? Being at the right place at the right time?
I think I agree. I mean, I didn't used to think that, but Buffett said that, he was part of the ovarian lottery. He was at the right place at the right time and he prospered. He said his sister was just as smart as him, but didn't have the same opportunities because she was of the female gender. And I too believe that also, that those who were born at midnight's children, as we so called, we came of age in the 85, just as the Berlin Wall fell and the world was changing. And we all prospered from that. So yes, we were at the right place at the right time. I think my father was just an astute stock picker as I was, perhaps better than me in many ways. But he was dealing with a market that was very difficult at that time, very small, very narrow. The opportunities of making money were less. So yes, you're right. We were lucky. We came of age at exactly the right time.
So if you don't have these privileges, right, whether it's meeting the right people, whether it's just coming from a place of all your sort of, not luxuries, but all your basics in place, right, in your childhood. If you don't have all of this, is it a bigger struggle to get wealthy?
It's probably a lesser struggle because if you don't have it, you're more hungry and you want to achieve it more. I think a lot of us that you mentioned names came from extremely modest backgrounds, where we watched every penny and we had only one pair of shoes and, it was going out was a rarity. So that made us hungry to achieve more and to express financial freedom because we knew that at the other side of that was a better life, So I think if you're born into privilege and complacency, I think you'll struggle a bit more.
No, actually, I've noticed two things about wealthy investors. They read a lot, and a lot of them have, over time, gotten some amount of spirituality or some amount of inner work that they do in order to just sort of wade through this greed versus fear path that this market sort of drags you into, right? With bull and bear markets. So on those two aspects, reading and spirituality, or any kind of inner work that you do, how has your path been?
I would only rephrase your question. It's not wealthy investors, good investors. Wealthy investors, the people who show off are all dime a dozen, and they come and they go as we've seen in the past. But good investors all have that attribute. I think a lot of them read, at least they learn to listen a lot. I think R.K. Damani, for example, He's not a great reader per se, he loves to read, but he's a great listener. He's one of the great listeners in this world, okay? But all the other investors you mentioned have been great readers too. And it's one of those businesses that require, what Charlie Munger said, you need to be a book with two legs, basically, to be good in this business. So yes, it does require reading. And I think once we've achieved a certain scale, a certain size, we realize how lucky we are. So I think that forces spirituality within you. You want to thank God, you want to count your blessings. So I think you're right. But it's not for wealthy investors, it's for good investors.
It's for good investors, okay. And any books that you want to recommend? I know you have a long list of them, but what tops your mind?
Well, generally I would recommend anyone, I'll share two stories with you. Anything on Buffett, Munger is good to read. If you're starting off, Buffett, Munger, Lynch, those write with such clarity and such neatness of purpose. But to come back to the story of how much I love reading, as you've often pointed out, I have two lovely grandchildren, Veer and Arna. And a few months back, Veer was traveling and he was missing his Dadu, which is me. So they put him on FaceTime to talk to me. And he says, Dadu, where are you? I said, I'm in the office. He says, what are you doing? I said, I'm working, son. What else do you think I'm doing? He says, whenever I come to the office, you're never working. I said, what do you think I do? He said, well, you sit in the sofa reading newspapers.
Do you tell him that is my work?
Yeah, hard to impress a 7-year-old, with what you're going to do. So I said, who works, you think, in the house? He says, my papa works. He works all the time. I said, what does he do? He said, he's on the computer all the time. So that's the story, that how important, well, whether your grandson likes it or not, it's actually quite important in this career.
So any books that you'd want to recommend? Any favorites?
I think just read anything on Buffett. Buffett, Munger. Poor Charlie's Almanac is a good place for advanced investors. Andrew Kilpatrick's book of permanent value on Warren Buffett. But just about anything. I mean, it really, and the reading is not necessarily about specific books, but just reading. It makes you slightly more intelligent every day. So read the financial press, read the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, The Economist, read books, read biographies. It's just, you read, you don't know where the information helps you in life. I mean, as Steve Jobs pointed out, that he did calligraphy in college and that helped him design the Macintosh with such beautiful font. So you don't know how the dots connect over a period of time. I was a programmer and I bought CMC 20 years later. So the dots will connect, but I think reading will help you connect those dots.
There's a touchy topic, right? How much money is enough? And I remember having this conversation with you, I don't know if you remember, where you said to me that, Sonia, I've made money, but I've never made the kind of money that my peers around me made, whether it was R.K. Damani, whether it was Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. What made you feel that that kind of money that you made was not enough?
Well, I tell you, it's not... You're right. It's like you can't be thin enough, right? You know what the feeling is, right?
You can't be too thin or too rich.
Yeah, too thin or too rich. So the problem is not that. The problem is that in this business, you measure yourself by money, and which is the way it should be, because you're not doing any social service or charity. We are measuring ourselves by the number of zeros in a balance sheet. So, I'm perfectly okay with that. And we're all starting with the same raw material, okay? So have I had multi-baggers or stocks that have gone up 50x, 100? Yes, I've had it. Have my peers had it? Yes. So how is it that they made more money than I made up? And it's not that it would change my life. I still love my friends, still love the place I live in. I still probably drive the same car. It's not what you can do with the money. It's just, have you won the Olympic gold medal? Have you won the Oscars in the film awards? So the Oscars or the gold medal in my business is number zeros you have in your account. So I feel that...
But isn't that a big problem? Because then you constantly compete, right? There's no end to it and then there's no joy in anything.
Which is great. No, but I like that competition. I hate contented people. I'm a malcontent. I think the malcontents change the world. And, I honestly believe it's not that if you gave me an extra 50 crores today, I would do anything different in my life. I'm absolutely fine. And I'm not at all saying, pity me, poor Ramesh Damani didn't make so much money as friends. But it is the measure of your intellect, the measure of how you've done in this world. And
Ramesh,
I want to compete with the best.
I don't think anyone is saying poor Ramesh Damani didn't make enough money.
No, sometimes they feel that, oh God, he didn't become a billionaire, his friends be a billionaire, I feel sorry for him. No, I don't feel sorry for him. I'm fine. I take care of myself. I have absolutely no inhibitions about that point. But I just want to be my best. I want my best foot forward. I want to set a good example for my children, for my grandchildren, that you must always strive to be the best in whatever you feel you do. You've got to go for the gold medal, got to go for the Academy or the Oscar Awards. And I think it's a worthy ambition. And, that I'm a malcontent about it, I'm happy. I think the day I'm contented about it, I'll be put out to pasture. I won't be relevant anymore. So I don't want to get into that stage, at least not yet, not at 67.
But wow, you're 67.
I
That
am
is
67.
amazing. And you still go to work every single day.
I go to single every day, and my wife, told me that it was the first time my age has crossed my IQ. So
Okay, trust the wife to set you right.
wife and grandchildren, a hard crowd to please.
Absolutely. But I mean, I don't know. I think differently that competition is just looking at other people. It's endless, right? There'll always be someone running faster than you in a race. And if you look behind in a race, then you're never going to be able to focus on what you're doing. Am I thinking correct?
See, I don't know. At least in the financial markets, it's not about the money. It's about being the best. Who is the best investor out of India? Now, it's very audacious for me to even say these things. I'm a middle class kid of South Bombay. What right do I have to say that I want to be a billionaire? I want to be the best investor out there. But Sonia, here's the truth, that I had the opportunity, okay? And to me, not taking advantage of that opportunity is inexcusable. Forget everything else. It's just, if I didn't have the opportunity, my father never had the opportunity despite being an astute stock picker. You can't blame him for that. That's the opportunity set. We had that opportunity set in India. I mean, the kind of fortunes that have been created in the last 25, 30 years are global sized fortunes out there. And at least in my heart, whether I make it or not, I hope one of my children or someone I mentor makes it, that you want to be your best. You want to be counted the best in the world. And it's inner drive. It's not that I'm competing with I want more money or I want a better house. Who cares about these things? I really don't care about them. Actually, I don't care about them. What I care about is that intellectual leadership that we all crave in the market. After a certain point of money, it makes no difference how much money you have. But that intellectual leadership, I think we do crave that.
But do you live in regret that perhaps you could have made more money in your life?
Absolutely, absolutely. Every single day, and again, it's hard to explain this point to someone who's struggling yet. That it's not about the money. It's not. I'm telling you, give me another 50 crores, it will make no difference to my life. I lose 50 crores, makes no difference to my life, because that's part of the volatility, as I said, in the market.
Like 90% or 99% of Indians would give an arm and a leg to be in your place.
100%, 100%. But I had a chance, okay, to be the best. All right, and I wish I would have grabbed it with both hands, as opposed to being a more modest middle class person. And I'm saying that in the nicest sense of the term. I'm not saying it in any sense that I regret. I'm very blessed. I feel very grateful. I've had a great life. But, is there within Ramesh Damani a deep desire to have been the best in this world? Yeah, there's a deep desire. And I know I came short, and it really bothers me because I had the same opportunity set.
But what is your definition of the best? Because there is someone who is perhaps even better than an R.K. Damani in investing, right? At some point in time. So best is also relative.
It is relative, but would I count myself as among the top 10 investors in India? Probably not. So,
I would.
You're very kind, because you bought TCI Express. You always open to me. But thank you. I appreciate that. But I have to ask myself the question. See, because I manage my own money, I don't manage public money. I have to be hard on myself. I have to understand where. And I urge everyone to be hard on themselves. It's not. Yeah, relatively we've done well. We've prospered. We eat what we want, drive where we want, go where we want. That's fine. But you have to be hard on yourself and say, was I the best in this business? And it's again, I come back to with the opportunities that are available. If the opportunity available, I won't complain about it. If I didn't have the opportunity, if I grew up in India of 60s, I would say that, I'm happy I can survive. I can fend for my family, But the opportunity is there in India and will remain for the next 20 years, So I may be running out of real estate, but someone behind me will have that real estate. And I hope he will take advantage of that opportunity, being inspired that you can't settle, that you have to go out and try and be your best. You have to try and fail by trying to be the best, not by trying to be middle class and, trying to be, modest. It's not on. I mean, you owe it to yourself and to the human experiment to be the best. If you knock down, pick yourself back up and move on.
Okay, I'm very inspired now, I must say. A couple of final questions before we let you go. So it's been a 40-year investing journey for you, right? What has the biggest lesson been?
It's again...
I'm sure there are many lessons, but anything that stands out for you?
Again, the lessons I spoke about in the previous paragraph, the ability not to be bored. I think I come from a middle class background, Sonia, and that kind of restricts you sometimes. I'm not using the excuse, but I think that restricts me. You want to be comfortable, you want to be safe. Yeah. You don't want to bet the bank on something that you truly believe in, because you don't know if it works out. Even today when I pick a stock, I'm gnawed by self-doubt. Whether it'll work, won't work. Even after 40 years, it's shameful, but I still am gnawed by self-doubt when I pick a stock. So I
So
think
that self-doubt actually never goes away.
it doesn't. Though. I think the great ones don't have it. The great ones have supremely confident in their abilities to, when they're doing it, they manage to put, as they call it, the bank on the table, when they're doing it. It's really, truly great ones. They don't suffer self-doubt, and they're truly good listeners, okay? So I think one of the lessons I wish, bit, bolder, bit more creative to express myself.
Okay. And over the next 5 to 10 years, since we are in a space and place where the market is correcting, right? I think personally it's a great opportunity to sort of buy in a correction. I am hungry for bear markets because I feel like, if you have 2 or 3 bear markets by the time you're 40, you're blessed. You get a chance to sort of create exponential wealth. Do you feel differently? And if this is a bear market or if this is a corrective phase that lasts for long, is this a good time to be buying?
Yeah, as I say, be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. I don't know what happens there. But is it a good time to buy? Yes. I'll answer your question this way. I think to keep it to the broad strokes, I've asked all the great investors of our era, R.K. Damani, Junjunwala, Nimesha, all of them, what has been the best decade for investing in India? Was it the 90s when Manmohan Singh came up and liberalized this country? Was it 2000 when the TMT boom took India by storm? Or was it 2014 when Narendra Modi finally came to power and India's trajectory changed out there? And unanimously, they've told me that the best decade to invest in India is going to be the next decade, okay? Not the previous decade. So as exciting as the opportunities have been in the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years in India, I think the next 10, 20 years will be more exciting. It'll be different. I don't think it'll be the same way as the prosperity that we had. People investing in India in 80s bought textile companies and bought shipping companies. People investing in 90s bought cement companies and 2000 bought technology companies out there. So it might be different. The world might look radically different if you were doing this podcast 10 years from now. So I'm not sure how it will look. But I think the Indian story will continue. The prosperity, the taking of 1.4 billion people into the middle class of the world is an extraordinary story that is untold in human history, perhaps only emulated by China. I think that will happen in India too. So there will be extraordinary opportunities to profit from that. I will warn you one thing, the idea that GDP growth equals stock market growth doesn't exist in this world. It would happen in China. Chinese stock exchange would be much higher than it is today. It's at, in fact, 10, 20-year lows. Xerox, let me give you an example. One of the great brand names in this world. The stock is at 40-year lows today as I speak to you. So, there's no such, written that this always happens, long-term investing always pays. These are all myths and mantras that we explored with periods of time. But I think people who are sharp, people who are looking for value, will find value and will be able to compound the money very handsomely over the next 10, 20 years.
Since you spoke about China, right, there was this phase between 2010 and 2015 when China saw this massive boom in per capita GDP, right? And then there was a consumption boom after that. Do you think India is getting there? Because I think now we're at what, $2,200, $2,300. But once we cross that $3,000 threshold, do you think there's a big consumption jump coming?
I think we're already the leading edge of it. I think just in terms of sales of luxury cars, travel abroad, property. It's just, we're the leading edge of it. 100% will happen, no question about it.
But that's also just the 1% of India's population.
I hope it trickles down. I think that's one of the more unsatisfactory parts that is unequally distributed. I hope it does trickle down. And it can't trickle down by taxing the rich. It is by causing better growth, more even growth, more productively-led growth. Luckily for us, even in a world which is now more making a U-turn, more inward-looking, India will do well because it's an inward-looking economy. It's a big domestic economy. So we can do well even with ourselves, just trading with ourselves as opposed to overseas. Of course, it's great that we do it, but we can still do well with ourselves. So yes, we will do well. I truly believe that. I don't know how the world will look 10 years from now, but I believe that the next 10 years will be as exciting as the last 20 have been for investors in India.
And I hope that 10 years later, we'll be sitting and speaking like this about the markets. But finally, if you had to give one piece of advice to your 25-year-old self and you had to do things all over again, what would you change?
What I would tell anyone younger is enjoy the process. I think it's I feel like I'm a student of business. I just love businesses unfold and see my judgments are right or wrong. People are more invested in the proceeds, getting rich and fine. But I'd give a lot of that back to get a full head of hair and be 20 years younger and enjoy the life. But that's not going to happen. But I think enjoy the journey. It's an extraordinary journey, extraordinary privilege that I've been a part of along with my set of generations. I think we are now at the end of our careers, but extraordinarily blessed and privileged to have been a part of this Indian story.
And I must tell you, I know you live in regret about your opportunities and prospects and perhaps growing your wealth further, but you've been an inspiration to all of us, including me, for many, many years. We hope to be like you someday, and hopefully we will.
Thank you. Don't set your sights that small. Because no, I'm just joking. But thank you. There's such kind words to you. And like I said, I've also admired your professionalism and work ethic for so many years. So we're so happy to be a part of your new show, and best wishes in whatever you're doing.
Thank you so much, Ramesh. Thank you for being a part of the show.
Always a pleasure.